wait just a little bit for people to take seats. This is the last event of Unfinished 25. Very sad. Okay. I'm Daniel Jones, modern love editor at the New York Times. I'm here with Alexandru and ստεφάνια, who are going to be reading our love stories this evening. Tonight's theme is parenthood and relationships between parents and children. One is from the point of view of a parent, and one is from the point of view of a child. These are some of the most powerful bonds we have, and I especially find in this crowd, I've been here several times, that parent-child dynamics are very, very complicated and very, at times, tortured, but interesting as generations change. We're going to have the post-reading part be a little bit different from yesterday. Instead of having you share stories with each other, I'm going to have you just think during these readings and after I tell my story of a moment or a line. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that when I'm finished with my story. And then I'd like to hear just from as many people as possible with the time we have at the end of the session. So I'm going to talk about my father and my relationship with my father. He died about 20 months ago at the age of 92. He was a political scientist, a professor, and a very prominent one. Had a long storied career. And it was sort of a remarkable story. He grew up very poor in South Dakota. It's in Iowa. His father was a preacher, but they were completely impoverished. And both his father and mother, it wasn't just his father, they had 6 children. They were poor. It was during the Depression. And they just took out their frustrations on their kids. And my father was the oldest, wasn't the oldest child, but the oldest son. And so he just sort of got regular beatings for any kind of what they deemed misbehavior, to the point where when he was 12, he ran away from home and saved money to get a bus ticket. He was living in they were living in a town called Davenport, Iowa at the time. And he saved enough to get a bus ticket. The farthest he could go was Dallas, Texas, which is a long way away. And he, as a 12-year-old with his stuff in like a pillowcase, he got to Dallas, Texas, spent some time on the streets, was then taken in by the police and put in the local jail, because that's what they did with runaway kids in those days. And then they went about trying to contact his parents and got them on the phone and said, "We have your son, and can you send money to have us send him home?" And they said, "Keep him." So some more time passed when he was down there just as a little kid. And they finally were able to reach, or his grandparents, his father's parents, finally found out about what had happened, and he'd spent time with them previously. So they sent money, and he went and had the rest of his adolescence very lovingly with his grandparents. He was determined not to repeat that kind of behavior with me and my brother. And he did a good job, but he always had you always got the sense that he was sort of repressing anger. You know, he had that in him. He'd absorbed it, and you could tell that was there. But he really tried tried to keep it in. We had a really good family life and childhood and adolescence and my 20s and all of that. And then we started to have distance in our relationship. And a lot of it was political. He was a conservative who only got more conservative with age, as people often do. I sort of discovered my politics as being liberal, and I only went in that direction. And it became a huge split between us. How many people in this audience have that split with their parents over politics? It's hard. And it was harder with him because that was his working life. He was a political scientist. When I became sort of a professional and I started doing the work that I do, it was problematic on two levels. He didn't understand the work. He felt proud of me, I think, but he had trouble expressing that because he didn't understand the storytelling. He didn't see where this was going. He didn't really understand why people appreciated it. And I was doing it for a publication that, in its news side, tries to be objective, but on its opinion side leans left. And so he disagreed with the politics of my newspaper. And I've been working there forever, so that became a rift between us. And it was actually kind of funny because my mother, who's always been very supportive, and when we would be together, and this is as recently as 5-10 years ago, she would, it would be at Christmas or whatever, and she would say, "Oh, so-and-so said something about your column, and about how good it, how important it is, or whatever," and she's just trying to make me feel good and flatter me. And my father would invariably say, "Have you seen the Wall Street Journal's feature sections?" The Wall Street Journal is the right-leaning main competitor to the New York Times and always has been. And this happened, this probably happened 20 times when she would say, "This is, so-and-so said something about how she admires your work." And my father would say, "The Wall Street Journal, they've started, a cooking section. It's so good." It was so passive-aggressive and got under my skin so much. But I didn't say anything. We mostly, we fought a little bit, but mostly it was sort of all pushed down and kept to the side. And he got older. He lived pretty well, was pretty healthy until he died. He was 92, but in his last couple of years, he had a series of sort of minor strokes. And it began to affect things like his vision, which then made him feel unstable on his feet. He was never in the hospital for any time, and he lived at home, and my mother still does. At 90, she is now. But that too began to make it harder to communicate. And I really thought, this is how it's just gonna be. He's gonna die, and our relationship is gonna be frozen in this place. And so Christmas, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before, I live in New York City, but my primary residence is in the Hudson Valley, which is a place about an hour and a half north up the Hudson River. And I've been hosting Christmas there for my family in recent years. And so my mother, who can still drive, even long distances at 90, they came up, not this past Christmas, but the one before, and the two of them, she drove, and they came up, and I didn't know that would be my last time seeing him. It turned out that it was. He was pretty feeble by then and couldn't hear that well and couldn't see that well. We all had our Christmas dinner, and they were going to leave on Christmas Day to get back home. So we were sitting around Christmas dinner, and everyone was chattering. I have two children, and they have partners, and my ex-wife was there, who we are on good terms, and we gathered, and my daughter noticed that my father wasn't participating in any of the conversations, and She's very sensitive to that kind of thing. And so she said, well, I'd like us all to go around the table and say what we were really grateful for over the past year and what we're looking forward to in the coming year. Just a typical kind of thing that people do at Christmas or Thanksgiving. And so I don't remember who started, but my son and said something and what she was grateful for, and my daughter, and it sort of went around to my father. Also, I should say, he would have trouble telling stories, he'd have trouble remembering things, he'd have trouble articulating things, which again was really hard for him, having been someone who used to talk in public and all of that, met presidents. So it goes around, it gets to him, and he said, I want to talk about Dan and his work and how proud I am of it. And he had this sort of perfectly articulated message about his pride in me, how I influenced what he called the most important newspaper in the world in their storytelling, and how it began to influence other parts of the New York Times, and how they, it's important that people read deeply into stories, and because of the shape of modern love stories, people read deeply into them, so they're trying to replicate that in other parts of the paper. And my father just sort of went through and gave a warm-hearted, loving speech all about that. I don't know if he knew that his time was running out, but it was so remarkable and left me in this place. And afterwards we talked about it, and I said, that was unbelievable what you said. And it was incredibly touching. They left the next day, and 6 days later he had a stroke and died. But it released me. It changed my whole impression of our relationship, and sort of casting back through it. I don't know how to describe it. It was just sort of a stunning thing. What I'd like you all to do, we're going to hear 2 parent-child stories. And after that, and while you're listening, and maybe informed by what I said, I'd like you to think of a moment with your parents, one parent, both of them, or a line, something that they said to you that was just so important to you, and made you happy, made you feel a love for them. Everyone's got to have one. Think about that, and when we're finished with the stories, I'd like to sort of have, with whatever time we have left, have sort of a lightning round where everyone just briefly, as many people as possible, are able to say something that was really important that their parents said to them. Thank you.
White Noise by Ramona Miku. Before I became a mother, I thought love was a pattern, something you followed without going over the lines. Then, he was born. It's still morning. The quiet that surrounds me every day from 8:30 when I walk through the door after dropping off the last kid at school until 11:30 when I must pick up the first one is broken only by the hum of the vacuum cleaner. I drag it behind me without looking back, focused on what needs to be cleaned, until I hit the mirror and crack it. Everyone will scold me again, "You're not careful," as if I could go back in time and prevent it from happening. I do the same thing. throw words around while knowing they do no good. Sometimes love is discontent and a bit of arrogance. It's, "I know better," said in a superior tone that we quickly regret. It's still morning. A morning just like all the others I've lived for the past 15 years. The laptop sits open on the desk. Just one tab on the screen. A Word document with a few lines written. A yellow sticky note I stuck to the edge of the screen over a month ago reads, "How many kinds of love are there?" When I'm done vacuuming, cleaning, doing laundry, cooking, picking up the kids from school, and 100 other things I choose to do every morning, I'll try to answer it. Until recently, I believed there was only one kind of love. Whether it's eros or agape, philia or storge, love is love. A pattern you follow the best you can without going overboard. Just like in kindergarten, when the teacher asks the children to color inside the lines. That's all I knew. That's all I loved. It took a moment of crisis for me to realize that love can erupt like a volcano and that I can love differently, more fiercely, more deeply. Or maybe it wasn't love that changed, but the way I see it. I'm 45, and for the past 13 years, I've been a mother. And that feels like the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Infinitely more intense and grinding than all the reports, presentations, training sessions, audits, meetings, and deadlines from all the jobs I've had. For a while, I thought the hardest part was the exhaustion and the worry. Oh, God, the worry. Can't hear anything. What if they're not breathing? Now they're breathing a little loudly. What if they got a cold? Pneumonia, bronchitis, bronchiolitis, they all seem to hover over the crib like vultures, waiting for the right moment. And that moment comes. It always does. Love is worry and sleepless nights. And sometimes it feels like it multiplies endlessly for each child, for each person I've chosen to keep close, for each thought I can't shake. I have 3 kids and a husband with whom I share my anxieties and fears. Yes, I can imagine it's hard for you, a colleague once said to me on a day when I was putting on my coat while writing an email, keeping an eye on the clock so I wouldn't miss the train. I don't have kids, but I have a cat. Yeah, exactly like that. Except the cat doesn't expect you to pick it up at a specific time because kindergarten is closing. It also doesn't ask you to take it to piano lessons 3 times a week or to buy it a phone that costs half your salary because all my friends have one, Mom. Fortunately, as the kids grow, life gets easier. I even get to sleep through the night. Love is trust and joy. Trips, walks around the city and visits to museums. Movies, books read at leisure, hugs and caresses. Peace and quiet. Until one day, out of nowhere, comes the blow. I cried at school today. Victor told me once, and all my lioness mother instincts kicked in, "Who upset you, sweetie?" I asked, rolling up my sleeves, ready to fight the whole world. "I'm stupid," he said. I got a low grade in science. At first I felt like laughing, then crying, then just holding him. You're not stupid at all, and it's just a grade. I said, it doesn't matter, baby. But it does matter. Because it's not just a grade. It's a grade among other grades and other signs that show me I have a special child. Whatever that means. All three of my kids are special, of course, because they're mine and I love them, but the other two manage on their own tasks that seem impossible for Victor. Love is frustration and helplessness. Victor can tie his shoelaces. He stumbles and is unable to break his fall with his hands, so he breaks his teeth. He can't keep his mouth open at the dentist, so any procedure is torture. He writes with great effort, reversing letters and syllables, leaving out entire words. His notebooks are full of cross-outs, the words slide up or down between the lines, and whole pages are skipped because what matters is that he writes, not where he writes. He struggles to read, inventing words because the words he sees are too long, complicated, uninteresting. He struggles to understand what he reads, doesn't get into the story, doesn't care about the characters. He explains things with thousands of details without conveying what he's actually trying to say. His thoughts are tangled. His stories mixed up, sprinkled with phrases like, "It doesn't matter, you couldn't understand anyway." His mind is like a highway, a psychologist once told me. Imagine that he hears cars speeding by in every direction all the time. Vroom, vroom. Headlights flashing, low beams, high beams, multiple lanes, so he doesn't know where to look first. Love is chaos. Victor speaks better English than Romanian, even though he lives, studies, and plays in Romania. He translates on the spot words he only knows in English. He gives PowerPoint presentations on subjects he's passionate about, talks about Sir Isaac Newton's gravity and all sorts of other unexpected topics. He has a rich vocabulary for his age and could easily win a trivia contest if he had the patience to listen to the questions all the way through and carefully frame his answers. He reads random stuff online and knows a lot about countries, flags, cities, wars, and superheroes. He asks me, "Do you know that the Dutch once had a minister who was eaten by people? Did you know that in 1518 Strasbourg had a dancing plague? Did you know that Ulaanbaatar is the most polluted capital in the world?" Love is curiosity and the joy of discovery. Victor purrs like a cat when he's praised and cries his eyes out when something upsets him. His emotions burst from him like water from a fountain. Love is pure, uncensored emotion. Victor has no friends. He goes out to play sometimes and manages to keep friendship for a short time, for the length of a soccer game, but he doesn't carry any relationship further. He loses at most games and cries, gets upset, slams things, mutters harsh words and screams. He invents powerful characters who fight and win, who can and do anything. Blue Fist, and Ritter Man, our comic book heroes he created. And even though his drawings are difficult to understand, he can talk for tens of minutes about each frame. He starts writing stories and movie scripts, only to abandon them after a few days. When he was little, he had an imaginary friend, a dinosaur that followed him everywhere. Love is creativity and imagination. Victor snuggles next to me and traces the contours of my face with his hands, as if to make sure I'm still me. "You're so old, Mom," he sometimes says. "What was it like in the time of dinosaurs?" And then he hugs me and laughs. "You know, Mommy, sometimes I wonder what my life will be like when I grow up." Love is hope. Victor and I wandered through the big city from one psychologist to another. How much can I say about him with him right beside me, while avoiding words that might scare him? How can I smooth over my worries and control my tone so that the specialist understands that what Victor doesn't seem ready to understand yet? So that I don't cry, and what I say is truly useful for an accurate assessment from which we can build strategies that actually work. Love is acceptance. It's still morning, and the hum of the vacuum cleaner offers me a moment of peace. White noise, a sound that drowns out the buzzing in my head, just as a few years ago it muffled the kids crying and helped them fall asleep. If only it were still that simple. Soon I'll have to make something to eat. Love is a big pot of soup.
Who Do You Look Like? By Mihaela Munteanu. All my life I wanted to hear that I don't look like my father. But his absence shaped me more than his DNA ever could. I was having a beer with my friends when I showed them a photo of my parents taken in the 2000s. Like other parents of their generation, they had moved to Germany to make money. My friends instantly told me that I looked like him. Yes, it's something about the shape of his face and his smile. After I spent my whole life running from this, after my family had reassured me with certainty, no, you don't look like him. After a lifetime of waiting for someone to tell me I looked like my mom, the parent I love, the one who was both a mother and a father to me. It was always important to me to resemble someone because every kid resembles someone. My sister looks like her dad, but also like mom. My cousins resemble my aunt and uncle. But I've always found myself in a liminal space that allowed my cousins to make fun of me, saying I came from a family of frogs, meaning that I was adopted. Later, when I felt out of place, I started to make the same kind of jokes. "No, you look like yourself," my mom would say, trying to soothe me. My first memories of my father are of me coloring in the tattoos on his arms with markers. These are the good memories from before my parents split up. Other good things about him I learned from my aunt. She told me that when he moved in with us in Călăraș, he walked the streets until he knew every one of them by heart. My grandma told me he was friendly and said, "How come you're not like that? Be like your dad." She would say this when she was having guests over and knew I wouldn't speak to anyone. Mom only told me that my father didn't like working, that he would leave his job during work hours to come home and sleep, and that he drank on the job. I remember him picking me up from kindergarten and then stopping at the neighborhood bar on the way home. I always said he drank water. That's because plum brandy doesn't have any color. So. Every time I see my uncle, he says as a joke, "Don't you miss your father?" We laugh. But the truth is, no. I don't miss him because I didn't get the chance to know him well enough to miss him. Yeah. I know him as Don. Don, who made 5 different Facebook accounts and sent me friend requests from all of them. He was always losing his phone or having it stolen, and every time he called Mom first because her number was the only one he knew. Sometimes he would write to check up on me, to make sure that I was still his daughter. I replied nearly every time, though with hardly any effort. Something like, "I'm fine, you?" Or, "Can't talk right now, I'm studying." Later, he would call my mom to brag about having a hard-working girl. Many years ago, after he got drunk and angrily smashed in our front door, he moved to Vienna. He picked German right away. He had a natural talent for languages that I like to think I inherited a bit. He was resourceful, an entrepreneur, someone who could sell anything to anyone. His sister used to say about him as a child, "You would give him a pen and he would come back with money." I talk about him as if he were a ghost. But he's still alive in Vienna, where he lives in a medical center. He can barely walk, but is otherwise okay. 2 years ago, his sister told us that no one had heard from him in a while, and we all thought he had died. Turns out he had been in a coma for 2.5 months. One day, Mom got a call from a foreign number, and it was him. Every possible emotion gnawed at me. I felt overwhelmed with guilt. Everything hurt. Even before we found out he was alive, I wished to reconnect with him. I thought it might help if we were friends first. if I could tell him about what was going on in my life and we could talk like two grown-ups. I wanted to see that he was not a bad person. Yet the guilt faded last year when we met again after about 8 years apart, and he talked for 2 hours straight. He told me how he had stayed up at night with me when I was little and how I cried the entire time. He held me in his arms and spoke with nostalgia, as if I were still that tiny child. He told me about his adventures, about women, and how he always told them about his one true love, Mom. He paused for a moment, asking how Mom was and whether I had a boyfriend. Mom's fine, and no, I don't. I left in tears, yet relieved. Finally, I had no reason to feel guilty. It was as if I had washed away all my sins, not wanting to talk to him, giving monosyllabic answers, resenting him for leaving me without a father, even though most of the time I just pretended he didn't exist. Life soon returned to its natural flow, though with a little more softness on my part for my own peace of mind. We resumed our rare phone conversations in which he talked with excitement and I answered more serenely. Then we both carried on with our lives. These days, I am trying to learn German, and I wish it was as easy for me as it was for him. No longer shy, I talk to strangers with ease. I like wandering through cities, as he once did, soaking in my surroundings. I don't have his entrepreneurial drive, and I don't like working. But at least I get to do what I enjoy, even if sometimes I'd rather go back to sleep than go to work. Maybe some part of him stuck with me after all. His absence, however, distorted my perception of love. I spent 5 years loving a man who came and went, mostly absent in reality, yet always present in my mind. A man I clung to only because he gave me a familiar feeling. Distance. I felt I had to earn his attention. I sent him enough poems for a lifetime, some written by me, some by others, because I associated him with everything I read. Recently, I dreamt of him, and in the dream, I told myself I felt like a ghost. And I don't know who the ghost really is, him or me. Perhaps we're both ghosts in each other's lives. It was also because of my father's absence that I sought out men who were older, imagining them to be wise, tender, and caring. I wanted someone to take care of me the way my father couldn't. But I ended up feeling more confused and more hurt after all those encounters. I learned nothing about love from them, except perhaps it shouldn't look like that. Absence breeds absence. For a long time, I denied having a father. I denied both his presence and his absence. Something always boiled inside me when I saw whole families. Sometimes it still does. Meanwhile, I learned to live with that emptiness, to accept no one person will ever fill it. Not even the men I liked, just because I saw in them a father figure who could take care of me. I keep a picture in my wallet from when my father was young and good-looking too. remind myself that there was some good in him, that he too was once young, confused and hopeful. When someone asks me which of my parents I resemble, I take out a photo and say, do we look alike?
Wonderful, thank you very much. So I would like to, we need some mics available, if that's possible. And like I said before, I'd like to hear, not long stories, just what's a memory, what's a memory of a moment you had with a parent, something that they said to you that was really especially meaningful to you. And we'll try to get in as many as possible. And then I'd like to have just some closing remarks once we get down toward the end. Who would like to start us off? Over here.
Hello, thank you. I'm going to try to be short. So the moment I remember it happened, I think maybe 25 years ago. My father was about my age. We lost the house because he put all the money of the house he sold in ftTEFANIA, most of you know. So that happened when I was starting college, university. So we had to move into a very, very small house. It's like we lost all our future. And in that small house, he told us that no matter what we have, as long as we are together and we are a family and we love each other, everything is going to be well. At that age, I couldn't really get it, but now I have the same age as him. And I'm really happy because I just finished paying my credit for my house. And I feel like finally I bought the house back for my family. And he's really happy that we finally have a house that it's ours. Like, yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Who's next? Back there?
Hi. My father's name is Dan, which kind of made me want to grab the mic. I, at some point in my life, switched careers, and it was very, very difficult for my mom to understand. So difficult that she stopped talking to me for months. I was 17 at the time. I moved to a different country 1 year later to study for my career. To be very short, I was playing classical piano, which I think it was her dream, and then I started drumming, and it was soul-crushing for her. And I received this email from my dad. My dad is a man of very, very few words, as opposed to my mom, who's very opinionated. And he wrote, "I am happy and proud to see that you only got the best parts of me." And that, which is very strange because I very much look like him. We are exactly the same. And for me, that was the confirmation that he trusts me and that he's also a bit afraid of my mom. So he couldn't say that out loud, but he did it through an email. So that was, I carry this with me. This was happening, I don't know, in 2013 or something like that. So it's been a while, but it's there.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. We over here? You? Yeah.
This is not something that I shared with a lot of people, but it seems like the right setting to do it. It's not something that my mom told me, because it is about my mom and my relationship with her. It's about something that a plant told me. So during my first ayahuasca ceremony, my intention was self-love, because I was reading a lot about it, but it was still very abstract for me. Like, okay, I need to love myself in order to have better relationships. But how do you do that? What does it mean to love myself? So I asked that. And during 8 hours of that ceremony, I was laying down on my mattress with my sleeping mask on. Everything I saw was my mom and myself through the eyes of my mom, all the struggles she's been through from the moment she found out she was pregnant. She was 20 years old at the time, so scared, so frightened, so confused. I experienced my birth through her body somehow. And then fast forward to my teenage years when everything was chaos and she was kind of raising me alone because my father was most of our lives working abroad. And I was really harsh with her and we never had a good relationship. I was really mean to her and I saw myself talking like that. And I saw her going to different rooms to cry. And then she would come back to me and she was always kind and calm and loving. She never screamed at me. She never showed her frustrations in front of me. And then towards the end of the ceremony, the plant told me that you should love yourself the way your mother loves you. This is the answer. No matter what you do, you should be compassionate to yourself and kind and always forgiving. Forgiving yourself for anything you might do wrong in life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Does someone else have a mic?
Yeah, I have. Hi. My father's name is not Dan, but I found myself a lot in that story, and I have a boy named Victor, so it's double hit. And I have a very recent memory from this March, actually. My parents split up when I was 1, and I didn't grow up with my father. And for 15 or 16 years, I didn't spoke with him until this February. And during these 15 years, I became an adult, I became married, I had 2 children and house and all of that, and he never seen anything and know anything in these 15 years. And then after a long process, I took again the connection with him. I initiated, and he came to us, and we had meetings, and the second time he came, and he saw the house and the kids and my husband and all of that. When I drove him to the metro station, he looked at me and he said only one word, but his eyes were like everything, saying everything. And yes, he's a man with little words and small words. And he looked at me and shook my shoulder like this and said, "Bravo." And that's it. But for me, it's like, it was the bravo I was waiting for 38 years.
Wow.
So it was very powerful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. Over here.
Yeah. So, hi. 1 year ago, I got a divorce. And my parents and I actually haven't talked about it too much because, you know, it was difficult. It was difficult for them, especially, because I think they suffered even more than I did. So I had to offer them support, and we changed the roles, yeah. But of course, I needed myself support, acceptance, love, and yeah. At some moment, we were sitting at a table and we were discussing about nothing, like we always do. We discuss about everything except the things that really count. But it was somehow this subject came up at that moment, and we were struggling to discuss about it. And there was an awkward silence at the moment. And my father, imagine just a very tall guy and a stiff one, just took a moment and said, you know, we love you and we are here for you. And at that moment, I wanted to cry, but I couldn't because we also don't do that. So yeah, I stayed there few more moments, and then I walked away. Few blocks away, I sat on a bench and I actually allowed myself to cry. That was it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Someone else?
So hand over.
There is the microphone.
Whoever has them, yeah, just keep the mics moving.
You have
okay.
someone behind Daniel.
Oh,
Whoops,
someone has
yes.
one back here. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't.
Okay, I got a bit confused. Oh, all right. I remembered some very powerful words of my soul parents, not my birth parents. I always used to half joke that I have 2 3/4 pairs of parents. 1/4, my mom. Another quarter, my dad. The 3rd quarter, my mom's husband. And then 1 pair, my uncle and my aunt. And the 2nd pair, my grandparents from my mother's side. When I was 2 months old, I spent a few weeks with my soul parents, my grandparents, my uncle and my aunt. And growing up, it was pretty damn confusing because my dad was not around. I always had to chase him for time and for anything, really. My mom had to always chase him so that he called me for, I don't know, birthdays or Christmas or whatever. My mom and her husband, I really don't want to go there. It's not pretty, but so I felt like I was the child of everybody and nobody at the same time. My uncle and my aunt have 3 beautiful daughters, and the words that they kept saying were first my uncle and my grandfather, fetele lui tata, daddy's girls. My aunt, I have 4 girls, and back in July, I had my wedding. And I was asking myself, how should I deal with this? Because I have so many freaking parents, right? And I really wished a moment, like a father-daughter dance, but I did not know who I should dance with. I really wished to dance with my grandfather. But it was easy. My father didn't show up. He made his choice. My mom's husband didn't force me to dance with him, so he made his choice and it was good. My grandfather, he wrote and read a poem for everybody in the room. It was brilliant because he couldn't dance. And my uncle, even though he has a really bad hip, both sides, he danced for like his whole life. I mean, we shared a beautiful moment. And yes, I am one of his 4 girls.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. You down here?
I grew up in a household where my grandmother came from a very traumatic life. She became orphan of her mother at 9 years old and of his father at 10 years old. And she is born in Bucovina, in one part of Romania, in north part of Romania. And when she was 15, she had to run away from there to come to Bucharest with nothing, because whoever was there, because she became a teenager, wanted to take advantages of. So she came to Bucharest with having nothing. So when I was born, and I was like, okay, when I was a child, 2-3 years old, sometimes I was breaking some dishes or doing some, but breaking dishes, let's say. And she used to tell me about this event like was the worst thing I ever did in my life, you know, this is how I was taking. Because she had no possession, material possession at all. So this was very important for her. So when I was 4 to 5 years old, I became a professional liar, hiding evidences and everything. And I continue to do this. So I became a professional liar, starting with this event I was telling you. And when I was around 12 years old, I went from school to visit a friend of mine, and when I was coming back home, my mother asked me, why you came so late? And I told her on that time we used to sell jars, sticle și borcane, and I told her that from the school they sent us to sell jars, sticle și borcane, so this is why I was late at home. But she knew already that I was not doing this. And I got beaten very much because this is how our parents was teaching us education. And late in that evening, now I can tell you this, then I didn't know, she wanted to apologize to me that she beat me very, very hard. It was one of the worst beat with the belt I got in my life because I did not apologize and I did not tell her the truth. And she took me to a table and she said to me this, I wish that whatever happened in your life, if it's a very joyful event or if it's a very sad event, you to be able to come to share it with me, even if behind your joyfulness, it's something which I don't agree with. Of course, it's the same with something which is said. But even if something is bringing you joy and I don't agree with, you to be able to share with me. And I think this is a very valuable lesson because I was able to do this with my kids.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop there. Thank you for sharing those stories. And I just wanted to since we're talking about parenthood tonight, the parents of this festival, Capuchin and Christian, are the parents of all of us in their way, and you could not ask for better parents, I have to say. I've come here many times, and there's not really, I've been to many other festivals. There's not really any other festival that's like this. Festivals often exist to make money. They exist to network, to get, for people to sort of attract funders for their projects and things like that. And this festival has none of that. This festival is free. The food is free, the alcohol is free. I don't quite understand how that works, but it does, and I hope you guys are grateful for that. It's really just an unbelievable gift to this community. So thank you once again. That's it for Unfinished Love Stories, and we're going to hear from Ian and Makul, and that'll be a festival. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.